Hello everybody and welcome to the Maastricht Edition. Today I'm going to be joined by Michelle Powell, an internationally renowned concert pianist who, although she comes from Canada, is actually a resident here in the Netherlands these days. How did she get here? Well, let's find out. Hello Michelle, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Joe?
Very well. Welcome to the show. Lovely to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, as I said, you are actually Canadian, and I'm talking to you in Canada at the moment, of course, because you flitted over there for a festival, but we'll get to that later. But usually you're based here in the Netherlands.
I am, yes. Netherlands has been my home for 7 years now, which is crazy.
But let's maybe, before we find out how you got here, let's go back a little bit, okay? Because as I said, you're a concert pianist who's traveling around the world.
Before Corona, I was.
Well, that's true. Yes. At the moment, you're stuck in one little room, and you've actually been giving concerts in one little room that we will talk about later as well, which is really interesting. But as a young girl, did you listen to classical music and think, "Oh my goodness, I have to play the piano"? How did it work?
That's a great question, because a lot of classical musicians grow up in the environment or they go to concerts or something, but I actually didn't hear my first symphony until I was 18, which is nuts. But that's just a little bit from the city that I'm from. I'm 500 kilometers from the city of our province, the capital city. So I grew up listening to country music. My dad raised me on Steve Earle, and I know every word to every country song in the 90s. But what happened was one day my mom just knew there was a piano teacher actually on this street where I'm sitting right now. She's a 5-minute walk down the way. And she said, I was 4 years old, and I remember this moment. She pulled me into her room and she said, "Would you like to start piano lessons?" And I said, yes, because of course I did.
Yes, of course.
And my first lesson was only about if my hand was big enough. And I remember opening my hand and looking and really hoping that it would be big enough to start lessons. Yeah. And I had the most wonderful teacher, and she was super encouraging and lovely. And I think I have a good fast learning ability, so it just was able to grow quickly. So I don't know if I had this, I don't think I had the natural classical music talent that a lot of people have, but I just was able to get into it and I loved it. So I kept going.
So that's a big step from country to classical. Are there, well, it seems like there's a big step. Are there actually any similarities at all?
Well, I mean, music itself has all of the basic structures, harmony and rhythm and pulse and all these things. So essentially, the bones of music are all there. But to be honest, I still know a lot of words to country songs. So I think it's important as an artist to just have a lot of influences and to enjoy a lot of different styles too.
Yeah. So growing up then, you're learning the piano, and this takes you through to study music as you get older.
Yeah, so I turned 18 and my life was piano and basketball. And my choice was either go play at the local college basketball or move to the city and start university lessons. Yeah. So I could have been a basketball star. I mean,
are you any good at it?
Yeah, I was good in high school. I don't know if I would have made it very far in college, but in high school I was playing well and I loved it and I miss it still. But I chose for university, so I started piano and I moved away from home for the first time at 18.
So when you're studying, you're going to be surrounded by other musicians as well. That must have been a big difference for you.
Absolutely. And I got to witness the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra, as I mentioned, for the first time at 18. And that experience in itself was just so beautiful and overwhelming. And I thought, how did I not know that this existed? And just to have that experience. And that's a little bit why I do a lot of outreach work now, also, especially in Paris with my viola duo partner. We go around to schools and we present. And I think this is so important for kids to know what's out there, because if they're not introduced to it, how do they know? I mean, now we have YouTube, of course, but back then I didn't have that kind of stuff to visually see. It's so impressive, the orchestra,
Yeah.
Then of course I was studying in a studio class, so I had many people around me who were all practicing and at kind of the same level, and I was like, oh wow, there are people like me and this is really exciting. And I was just loving every minute of those 2 years in Edmonton.
Classical music has had a bit of a stuffy reputation, and it's all been about chamber music and people getting dressed up in black tie and cocktail dresses, and it's all been very formal, where now you do see lots of beautiful young people coming on stage. Some of you girls are wearing sparkly dresses and running around like rock stars. I mean, that's got to be a great influence now, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of well-known musicians who have started to become more approachable to the audience, and branding and marketing has really shifted, I believe, in the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years. So, for example, Yuja Wang, she's very known for wearing her split dresses all the way up her thigh. And I remember my teacher, when he first saw a video of her playing, he just rolls his eyes and he's super embarrassed and inappropriate. It should only be about the music. And it's like, well, actually, I think that the generation we're in now, it can't be just about the music. The music is worthy in itself. It's valuable. It's important. It's interesting. However, like our generation has changed so much to be so digital and so visual that there has to be a visual element, and people need to feel connected. I think people are really tired of not having that kind of distance. And I think that even translates into how, therapy is more normalized these days. People are getting used to talking about their feelings. People are getting more open. They want to be more real. They don't want to have any false pretenses and stuff. So I think that's where the stuffiness of classical music, like, it had to go. It has to shift, or else it won't survive.
So you studied music in Canada, and you ended up in the Netherlands. How did that journey happen?
Yes. So it was an evolution east. So I'm currently in Grand Prairie, Alberta, which is very north of Alberta. Then I went 500 kilometers to Edmonton, the capital, did 2 years there. And then I did a summer program in Montreal, near Montreal. And I met my next teacher there, and he blew me away. He was just phenomenal. So I asked him to transfer and finish my first degree with him, my bachelor's in music. So I jumped over to Montreal. That was 4 hours away. And that was a big move for me. I was only 20. And it was into a new culture. Quebec is very different than Alberta. Absolutely. It's my university was in French, so I had to learn like a whole new world. I was in Quebec for 5 years, and then it was just, well, like, let's just keep going east. There was a lot of people in Montreal who were doing European exchanges, actually, for semesters. I had Canada Council funded me to study in Switzerland for the first year. So I flew from Maastricht to Switzerland every month to have lessons.
Wow.
But it was, so for me, it was like, this is incredible. Like 30 euros, and I'm in Switzerland. Like, this is my...
Because Canada is a little big, isn't it?
I mean, I have to drive from where I am right now. I have to drive 5 hours to get to the next city. So to know that I'm in Switzerland on a 1 hour plane ride, I mean, I was loving every minute, Yeah. So I had this amazing teacher for the first year, and then I just started to look, how do you build a classical music career after school? And this is actually, like, I've started a new company 6 months ago called The Fearless Artist. And this is exactly what we talk about. We're helping musicians build their career in the real world after the bubble of music school. The structure, there's teachers, there's studies, there's classes. You have to show up at a certain time. You have to do certain tasks. And then, all of that ends. And all you really know how to do is how to play your instrument. But I'm finding more and more that people are not prepared for, how do you promote yourself? How do you create a brand online? How do you pitch for gigs? How do you negotiate your fee? If you ask a musician, what's your fee? You usually get like a deer in the headlights look, because they're like, I don't know, but can you pay me? And that's just not sustainable, which perpetuates this starving artist mentality. I think there's multiple ways to find your way forward with this. And there's enough people interested in it to find your people. And what I'm learning more and more is that you don't need to play for everyone. You just need to find your people. And that's enough.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because, of course, you set up Opus 16 in Maastricht, where you have definitely found your people, because being a regular myself, I do see the same faces whenever I come to see you. Are there any plans to expand that at all? And maybe you could just actually tell our listeners exactly what Opus 16 is.
Yes, thank you. There are plans to expand this year, so I'm glad you brought that up. But Opus 16 is a concert series, classical concert series, and I'm the artistic director. We have venues in Eisden and Heithausen, and this year we're expanding to the Parkstad Limburg Theater in Heerlen. Really big news. It's so exciting, and we did not get canceled because of Corona, so I'm just thrilled with that. And our first concert there will be in October. But it's a series that I have, and our mission is, well, we hire international artists to play. Young people, who have just, my age range for the performers is people who are out of school and building their careers. Because for me, I think, like, this is when you need the most infusion into your career. You really need to get out there. You need to be seen. You need good goals and structure after school, because you don't have the school supporting you anymore. And yeah, we do have a regular community of people, and they're just lovely, and they are so appreciative. And then I think, you guys are the reason that I'm doing this, because of what the comments that I get back and the experience that I'm trying to create. And this is, again, coming back to it's more than the music. The music is core and it's important, but I'm trying to create an experience where someone comes to an evening at Opus 16 and they have like an hour and a half of peace. And they think, this is a break from the craziness of my life. I don't have to think about Corona here. I don't need to worry about my emails or my phone or whatever. And I can just sit and think and process and like enjoy my life for an hour and a half.
So you're saying that you've managed to expand Opus 16, but what other projects have you got going on? You're in Canada at the moment for a festival. What else have you got looking ahead?
Yeah, so this weekend I'm actually performing in a classical concert series here on Sunday. It's outside, which is going to be really interesting, I think. And as soon as I come back, I'm performing in Kunstdagen Wittem, which is an outdoor concert. They're doing like a quarantine festival. There's 4 concerts, and that'll be September 5th with Nick Starmans, my saxophonist that I often play with. And I'm looking forward to that as well. He actually just wrote this morning that it's going to go through. So they have 50 people coming, which is great news because you never know, right?
Yeah.
I've been planning next season. I've been planning it and then just waiting to see if it gets canceled. I know some people who are hesitant to plan, but I think that's actually a mistake because if it goes through, then you want to try and take
Absolutely, yeah.
So plan for it to work. That's my motto.
Well, you have actually been doing some online concerts, of course. How have you been finding that?
Okay, so this was an amazing revelation for me because it was an idea that was suggested to me by Peter Schonderwoord, who is the former director of Jazz Maastricht, and he wrote about it on his blog. And he was talking to his audience, which is jazz artists, and he called it like a one-ticket concert. And the idea was that you perform for just one family or one person, and then they get to choose the repertoire. You get to have a great conversation. They sit in the comfort of their homes with their favorite drink, and you have this interaction, this connection. And for me, that is so attractive about music because it's about the connection for me. Because I know they could just turn on a CD of whoever and sit. Like, why do they want to call me? You need to think about that as an artist, like your unique selling point. Why do people want you? So I didn't know if it would work, to be honest, but I just made a little menu and I chose, 20 pieces that I thought the average person would love to hear for classical music. I did have 15 people who called and said, like, I'm interested in this. So I had the most wonderful experiences. I had a woman in Sweden who phoned, and and then people who were also local, and they say like, oh, we chose this Chopin piece because our mother-in-law used to play it, or we chose this settee because I heard it once when I was traveling and it reminds me of this. And then we have this connection, this conversation, and I thought this is so interesting for people, and this is what they can't get when they turn on the CD. That's true, connection that we had.
Yeah. So you plan to continue those?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, now that things are opening up, we'll have to see. But I think it's such a great idea. And the biggest thing was that it doesn't limit me geographically. So I had actually a lot of people in Canada who called and they said, I have wanted to hear you play your entire life. So now finally I can hear you in like a proper. And I thought, okay, that's interesting because now my audience can be anywhere.
Yeah. Well, it seems to have changed across the music industry completely now, doesn't it? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years. I know personally you can't beat being in an audience. Whatever kind of concert you go to, there is that connection with the person sitting next to you where the atmosphere builds and you're all swept up in the music. I mean, you'll never ever get that from an online concert. But we have to do this, don't we? I mean, we have to find a way of accessing music. We can't just let the music industry wither away and die. Right. It's so important.
I think a lot of people were afraid when Corona came because you think of limitations and you think, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this. But when you have new limitations, you have new opportunities that you wouldn't have thought of before. Yeah. And actually, the most beautiful experience I had, I think, was my grandma is in a care center. She has severe dementia. She can't speak anymore. Oh, and it was her 85th birthday. And the care center had set up FaceTime calls with family members. So instead of a call, I just had a concert for her. And as soon as she saw me behind the piano, like the lights went on. She knew who I was. Like she couldn't say it. She knew who I was. And so I played for her. We sang her happy birthday. We had a group call. The whole family was on the call. I'm sitting in Europe. She's sitting here actually in this city. And then we finished this beautiful experience. And then I thought, I could have done this last year. I could have done it too. But I never even thought to do this because Corona presented all new interesting factors.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the coming years with the music industry. They have to adapt. They have to change. So, and it sounds like you're already doing it.
Yeah.
It's been lovely seeing you, Michelle, and have a chat with you. It'd be great to have you back in Maastricht soon. When do you plan to be back in this part of the world?
I'm coming back at the end of the month, just in time to start rehearsals for my September concerts. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, good luck with those. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fantastic. We'll put all of your details across our social media, and we'll look forward to seeing you back on the show again very soon.
Thanks so much, Jo.
Take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Michelle.